Hello there, Internet. MegaMogwai here, and I got another list of Runeterra for you guys today. And today we are going to be covering the God patch. Not any patch whatsoever, the God patch. Patch 2.10 English, which is a patch that we've been waiting well over 50 days for. Ever since November 11th, we've been waiting for Riot to balance up the meta a little bit. And not only are we getting that with this, no, we're getting a champion, a bunch of new cards, alongside the crazy changes that we're going to be talking about as well. Now, I'm not going to lie and say they changed everything I wanted them to change, because I never really expected that, because I believe that they got a lot of buffing to do to some of the cards that were released in the latest batch of the expansion. Nonetheless, we've had a pretty stale meta for a while. It hasn't been a toxic one ever since the Go Hard nerf. Last time I confused Grand Plaza nerf, even though, you know, now it's not so confusing, right? So I'm spoiling a little bit, but I mean, I assume a lot of you have already read these. But yeah, man, there's a lot going on here, a lot of very key changes, and even though I do believe there are still more things to be done, and I will be referencing, or I'll be referring to what I mean with that in the later portion of the video. Ultimately, this is one hell of a patch, and I'm very excited to talk about it. I have a lot to talk about as well, so without further ado, I have like a hair here or something. Let's just get into it, right? Let's talk about the Aphelios Champion expansion. That's where we'll start things off, and we'll just go on with what the letters say, you know? Letters and words, important to respect them. I don't know. It's been a while. I haven't recorded in consistently for this month, and I can feel I'm a little bit rusty. Bear with me. Our most complex and adaptable champion to date, Aphelios, has made his arrival in Legends of Runeterra. The champion of the faithful brings with him a small collection of new cards as part of the Aphelios Champion expansion. For a deeper dive into Aphelios' design and mechanics, check out the overview video with design director Riot Umbridge on the Legends of Runeterra YouTube channel right now. Tomorrow. I'm so optimistic that I read tomorrow as right now. I don't know. My brain just lied to me. It's one of those things, like one of those mental illusions. Like that just happened to me. Yeah. I guess we gotta wait. So, we are gonna be talking about Aphelios and the cards that come with him, but I do believe that I am going, we're gonna be covering the card updates first. The Lunar Celebration, real quick, break out the fireworks. It's time for the Lunar Celebration. Log in over 7 days during the Lunar Celebration event period to earn rewards, as well as new Lunar Celebration quests each day for even more rewards. Complete all 7 Lunar Celebration quests to earn the Year of the Ox card back. I'm not sure what I assume this is the Year of the Ox card back, which looks pretty sick, honestly. So keep that in mind. We got a new event going on, and yeah, I never put too much attention to this because I just like. Eventually, I end up covering the events fully. I've never had a problem with that, so I tend to ignore this part a lot and just jump into what what's really hot right now, which are these card updates. So yeah, I'm done teasing. Let's talk about these changes. First of all, a couple of changes to champions. One of them probably nobody saw coming, really. And the other one is obviously one that we have pretty much demanded at this point, right? So Miss Fortune, her level 2 version, or her leveled up version, has been nerfed in the sense that her overwhelm keyword has been removed. Now, this is very relevant for Miss Fortune. Miss Fortune, believe it or not, because some people say, well, it's hard to level her up, and it's not really. In the right deck, which is Quinn, Grand Plaza Scouts, with a full set of Relentless Pursuit and a bunch of scout units as well, Miss Fortune puts in the massive work, and a leveled up Miss Fortune is honestly generally equates to a victory. It's very difficult for you to come back because the sheer damage output that she will lead onwards with is just very hard to stop, right? Pinging the entire board 3 times, as long as you don't have any tough units, will make it so that you won't really have many reliable blockers against Miss Fortune, and her having Overwhelm combined with her attack ability is just extremely powerful. And ultimately, I don't think she really needs it to be good. I think this is definitely a strong hit for the champion, but I don't know how much of a hit this will be for Grand Plaza scout decks in general, you know, because a lot of times those decks don't, like most of their games, they're not leveling up Misfortune for because she gets removed, you know, any sort of like competitive deck that can disrupt their game plan a little bit will prioritize Misfortune most of the time. So I don't know what the general consensus is for this change, but I don't think it's going to be as big as some people may expect it to be. It's definitely going to hurt, but I don't think scouts are doomed because of this. And while I did not ask for it, nor did I see it coming, I'm not too upset by it either, right? I'm fine with this change. You know, I think it's important to note that the live design team has access to a lot of data, and a big change to a champion like this is not done just because, you know. So keep that in mind. Now let's talk about the very interesting one right here in Victor. Victor has been buffed in a couple of different ways, actually. And I stated before that in order for Victor to be competitively viable, he needed to be buffed in more than one way. Now, I presented various options, but this is not exactly what I was asking for. And I'm going to give you guys my initial impressions because Victor is a very cool champion. In fact, the champion that I've had the most fun with this latest portion of the expansion, and also a champion that I have also struggled significantly with and honestly tilted to hell and back with. So yeah, basically for anybody wondering, the biggest problem with old Victor was that he was too slow to level up for one. He wasn't really well statted either, and also when he levels up, the payoff, you know, for how much it costs you to get him there, the payoff really isn't that big at all, right? It's the archetype itself, he relies on other cards as finishers, and sometimes it's easier than done to justify a specific type of finisher in a Victor deck, right? So those are the biggest things that Victor struggled with, and they were a lot, right? So Riot's answer is to, first of all, make his level up requirement a little bit easier. Instead of 8 created cards, 7 created cards. And also, the other change is that he will create a hex core upgrade on both play and round start. So when you play him, you'll be getting that hex core upgrade. It will still cost 1 mana though. So this is a pretty significant buff to the champion, like giving him slight buffs on 2 different areas. For most champions, it really does go a long way. Now, when it comes to Victor, unfortunately, I do not believe this is enough. I believe Victor is missing out on quite a bit more to be ultimately competitively viable. I think he is still, I honestly would have buffed him to 5 created cards. I think leveling up Victor should be relatively easy, considering his payoff is not really as, I just still don't feel like it equates to what you're doing, right? Because yes, your created cards cost 1 less. That's amazing, right? But ultimately, outside of like mushrooms and a deck that's like really focused on mushrooms, where is this really coming into play, right? Like how is this impacting the game? Because normally when you level up a champion, it has to have some sort of like game defining, at least threat going on for it, right? That it needs to be answered or disrupted in some way. A lot of times with Victor, you can just kind of like ignore him, right? Even though he is getting a keyword every turn and he is getting stronger and stronger. So maybe I'm underestimating him. Maybe this will be enough to push him. I do have several ideas with Victor that I was waiting for the buff to happen for me in order to explore. But ultimately, I do not expect Victor to be a part of any tier 1 deck. Hopefully, I am wrong about that, though. I think this is not enough. But it's definitely a nice step in the right direction. And at least it's got that going on for it. So what do you think about the Victor change? Do you disagree with me? Do you think this is more than enough to make him really strong? Yeah, I'm all in for the debate. Like, I'm not saying, you know, this with 100% certainty, right? Like, I can't really say that about any card until I actually play with it. Makes sense. So, you know, hit me up in the comments and let me know what you think regarding your boy Victor. Now, let's talk about one that we all saw coming, and I'm pretty sure very few of you are actually upset about this. The Grand Plaza, the most broken landmark in the game, got finally nerfed, and exactly how I wanted them to nerf it, because I like Grand Plaza as a card. Believe it or not, I am a fan. I don't have to hate every single card that's super popular and good. You know, just because a card is good Doesn't mean I despise it. I know I'm a hipster wannabe, but there are certain mechanics that I find very intriguing, and Grand Plaza is one of those cards that really has done more for the game than almost any other card out there. The fact that it just on its own single-handedly like made Ephemerals finally viable. Lucian Hecarim is an awesome deck, and I really did not want them to lose that, right? And they don't. Their ephemeral units are more frail. Like anything else that's buffed with the Grand Plaza will not receive the health buff anymore. But it turns out, ephemerals die anyways, and you really care about the power more than anything. Obviously, board wipes, AoEs are more efficient now, and you got to keep that in mind. But that just adds more key decision making. Also, makes it so you don't want to overcommit with cheap health units too much if you're expecting cards like that. And it just adds a lot more decision making to the game, and ultimately it makes the card much more fair. English. So this is really, really neat, because now in order to justify Grand Plaza in your deck, you do have to have some sort of synergy going on, some ability to spawn units, multiple units for very little mana investment in one turn. Also a strategy that really has some good rally effects packing as well. And yeah, ultimately we'll see if this card is still played in the likes of Zoe Aurelion Sol Targon decks, because not only did this card get nerfed, but also a couple of very key Targon cards as well. Really, really love this patch because of how they went on against Targon. I think it was much needed, and man, a lot of these changes are exactly what I was asking for. It's just so satisfying to see it go down this way. We got War Chef, something that we weren't really expecting, but they buffed it up to a 2-2, and I love this stat line. I think this stat line is significantly better than a 1-3, especially, they explain it really well there. Ultimately, with support units, you are attacking, so having a stronger power stat really does go a long way with trades, and I think this will make War Chefs a little bit better. Still worse than what they originally were, but they were kind of like an auto-included Demacia before that, so I'm happy with this. Swap Homecoming, a very, very key and intriguing Ionia buff, as we have kind of like, semi-old Will of Ionia in a way, right? We have a 4-mana Will that also targets landmarks, but requires you to recall an unit as well, because it says recall an ally unit or landmark to recall an enemy unit or landmark. So it does leave for... It does leave you open for more counterplay, but it's the price to pay for a 4-mana Will of Ionia. So I really like this buff. I'm not sure if it'll make the card overall competitive. It could. It's hard to predict, really. But with cards like these, going down one cost, it's still like, it's not just, okay, a little bit more disruptible. No. Because of its requirement, Homecoming is significantly more counterable than Will of Ionia ever was, right? Or ever will be. Now that it costs less, it actually makes sense to play, because before it costing 5 mana, like I didn't know why you would ever play this over Will. So now it makes it a nice competitor to that card, even though that card has not seen too much play as of now. But if the meta does slow down a little bit, Homecoming could definitely put in the work. I fucking love this change, man. God, this is one of my favorites. Green Glade Elder from a 1-1 to a 3-1. It was so necessary, man. I played with a lot of Green Glade Elder in the past. I think it's a very cool card. I like the hand buff archetype. If you take it beyond just elusives in Ionia, I think there's a lot of very interesting implications with this strategy, and it's overall just very fun to play, right? A lot of times it features rally effects, and you know me. Any deck that does is a cool deck in my book. So one of the sweet things about Green Glade Elder is that now he's a fearsome blocker. A 3-1, he can trade well into other 2-drops, 3-drops, and even 4-drops, like Chump One, for example. That's really good, because before the tempo was so low, like, yeah, you were dropping a Chump blocker, but you were paying 3 mana for it, man. No matter what you're doing, paying 3 mana for a 1-1 just never feels right. But with Green Glade Elder having 3 attack, there's just a lot of cool shit you can do with him, and I love it. It just makes him so much more competitive, and may actually justify people playing him for once, and I am really looking forward to that. Also looking forward to your boy Captain Fern getting a much needed nerf. I really am a fan of how Steve Ruben made Captain Fern all of a sudden playable because the latter version of Captain Fern was honestly very poorly designed. It would convert your entire hand to decimates. This one was turned into more competitive by having it generate you those decimates, right? But 3 decimates is a bit too much. There's a lot of decks that don't have healing, and Captain Fern was such a legitimate finisher against them. It was a little bit too efficient, you know? This card was low-key, like, very oppressive on its own. So now going from 3 decimates to 2 decimates makes it feel much more fair, and it feels like Captain Fern will steal away less games than before, and that's great without losing his viability, in my opinion. I still think he's a fantastic finisher, but you're gonna have to work a little bit more to get the W after playing him. Blade of Exile. This is honestly, the more I think about this card, the more surprised I am that this is not the original design of it. Like, paying 3 mana for +2 with Overwhelm, Quick Attack, and at slow speed, like, that just was not... That was one of the lamest payoffs a champion had ever. Like, that's the reason why Riven didn't see any play. Like, why I never found a right situation where I could afford a 3 mana slow speed play like that. With Blade of Exile being 1 mana, now we're talking. Now we can definitely, even though we are, you know, sacrificing momentum with it in a way, because it's kind of like the same effect Go Hard has, right? It's slow. So you are passing over initiative. That's the price you're paying. The fact that you're passing over initiative. You're giving the opponent the chance to develop something or play something at slow speed that can potentially halt your attack, right? And it's a nice price to pay when you take into account leveled up Riven. I don't know what I was thinking about there. Ultimately, that's that, right? But it costing 3 mana just made the card, like, really silly, like, really bad. And now... you know, that's pretty much the explanation that they gave, right? Now this is legit, and I'm legitimately excited to try out Riven with this new version of Blade of Exile and this new version of Blade Squire. We're going to talk about these rules, so don't worry about that. Blade Squire went from a 1 mana 1/2 to a 2/1. This makes it so that it's actually an offensive presence for a 1-drop. It attacks and it deals 2 damage. You know, it's more frail, but you want that with the Last Breath effect. I understand them making it a 1/2. Basically the opposite stat line of what you would want to balance the card a little bit. Because, honestly, this card could all of a sudden just be one of the best 1-drops in the game. Just because it has 2 attack now. Like, a 1 mana 2/1, just keep in mind that you're paying a 2 mana 3/1 that, yeah, she's giving you the Reforge effect upon entry, but you're paying 1 more mana for 1 more power, ultimately, you know? Like, Blade Squire is amazing now. There's a reason why this guy was not released originally as a 2/1. The same reason why Mountain Goat was initially a 3/1, right? We're talking about very high-powered 1-drops and 2-drops if they are this way. But, unfortunately, for Riot, I say for them because these kind of decisions are not easy to make, man. Like, they really aren't. But unfortunately for them, a 1 mana 1/2 Blade Squire just saw no viability whatsoever, and yeah, this change was deemed ultimately necessary. But this is one of the cases in which, you know, I'm not surprised Blade Squire was released the way it was. I understand the requirement for that, but sometimes you just, you know, you gotta pick your poison, and it's better to have a card being played more often than not seeing any play whatsoever. And this is the God part of this patch. This is, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of sweet changes going on here. Especially like some key, like especially to Grand Plaza and stuff, but this is what really put a smile on my face. This is exactly what I wanted them to do with Tarkin. There's a lot of opinions from high-level players out there that were claiming that in reality, I mean high-level players, like just people who are masters, right? You know, the thing about any card game community is that if you're in the highest rank in the ladder, then some people, it gets a little bit too much to their head. It's happened to me in the past. And, you know, they're very vocal about their opinions, right? But when it comes to Runeterra, there's a lot of very differing opinions, even at the very top level of gameplay, right? And Targon was a very interesting subject because there were several people who really advocated for Star Spring being nerfed. I think that's a big mistake, and I'm really, really happy that the live design team did not take that route. I think Star Shaping is actually very balanced as a card, and instances in which it feels a little bit too much is because the card has been backed up by cheap burst speed spells such as this one. In order to gain tempo, because all that tempo that you're losing out on Star Spring is very easy for Targon to mitigate with cards like Hush, because for 2 mana you can shut down a massive attack from the opponent and make up for that 5 mana that you spent healing up and drawing a card. So ultimately, Hush and Pale Cascade has always been fundamentally the biggest problems with the Targon, and the biggest reason why Targon is at the power level that it is. Hush started off being a 3 mana that just replicated itself, which was absolutely insane. It went down to 2 with a more simplistic version of the card, and now they realize, you know what, we should have just printed Hush as a 3 mana burst spell from the get-go. They want this card to exist, but the card has been too prevalent on 2 mana, and this change is going to have some massive effects over the card. There will be many instances in which this card will succumb to momentum, as being able to always have that 3 mana ready is nowhere near as easy as having 2. It seems like basic math, but it really does make a massive difference, and I definitely expect Hush to take a big hit. And Pale Cascade finally reducing a little bit of his power output. Getting +2 attack with a card that cycle itself was always ridiculous. I was a big advocate of this card just being eliminated from the game. I just really hated how it dwarfed any other combat trick out there, and now it's fair, man. You're getting +1/+1, but you're drawing a card, so you're not losing card advantage, and you're still getting a decent boost. I think this card will still be fine. It won't be an auto include in Targon anymore, which is perfectly okay. I don't think this was a healthy example of an auto include. I don't claim that all auto includes are of that toxic nature, but this one definitely was, and I definitely expect Targon to take a big hit after these two, especially decks like, for example, Zoe Aurelian Soul with the Grand Plaza just had 3 cards nerfed in their deck, and that may not seem like much initially, but man, that is a big hit to take. It's hard to believe that deck will stay at the top after all these changes. But, we'll see. Like, Targon was at a very high power level, and maybe, it turns out this is not enough. But I do definitely believe it will be. Overall, a fantastic balance patch, man. Like, so much good shit. I love the nerf to Grand Plaza. As big of a fan I am of the card, I really think it will be more used in synergistic builds now than ever. I like the change to War Chef. I even like the change to Misfortune, honestly. I do think Victor deserved better, and I think he will require more in the future. But I love, I forgive them after I see stuff like Green Glade Elder being buffed. Like, that's just the tits. We see the new single player Legend Labs Lab of Legends. I'll look into that later. To be honest, I'm really thinking about these balance changes right now. We got this sick ass looking board. I don't know about you, but I love it. That Oriental style. It looks beautiful. I like the new Guardian a lot. Definitely what we meant. Dislikes loud noises. Well, it seems like a fireworks. That has to be intended. We got the new card backs with Aphelios. We got Misfortune right here. We got the Beast with that swag. And I don't know who you are. Maybe somebody in the comment section down below can tell me who this is. But I do believe this is Darius because of the scar in the face, though I could be wrong. And yeah, some really sick shit, man. I also like this new version of T-Hex. Looks dope as hell. And that's pretty much it. Some changes in expeditions, buckfists, all that stuff, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the patch right here. But we're not done with this video. We got a lot to talk about. It is a god patch after all. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hovering over to the Legends of Runeterra Twitter, and we're going to take a look at the cards that were revealed today. I want to make the music. This music is dope as hell. They should have this music for every time this is the first time that they actually incorporated music onto these Twitter videos, and I dig it. Just wanted to clarify that. We got the Flight, 1 mana 2/1 with Nexus Strike, draw 1 and shuffle me into the top 3 cards of your deck. A 1 mana 2/1 with Elusive that will replace itself, but ultimately will cost you tempo, right? I still believe a unit like the ninja, the little ninja kid from Ionia, I forgot his name, is ultimately better than this, because this is, like I said, losing you momentum. But at the same time, you can also use it as an elusive blocker. It could be really useful in hyper aggressive decks as well. If you're trying even some mind meld builds with Targon, etc. Having such a cheap elusive is always going to find some sort of utility somewhere, right? I'm not. It's a hard card to evaluate because of that. Because this is ultimately a negative effect. Like you are losing tempo because of this. It is a way to balance out the fact that you're getting a 1 mana 2/1 with elusive. So considering how we already have some fantastic 1-drop elusives like Zoe, like I said, I find it difficult to justify the flight. But maybe I'm missing something on it. That's just my initial take on it first. The Sky Shadows, when I'm summoned, refill 2 spell mana if you behold a Nightfall card. So basically a turbo young apprentice? No, what's the name of the card? The Academic Apprentice or something like that. The Piltover 2-drop. 2 mana 2/1 that refills your 2 spell mana upon entry. This will be a 2 mana 3/1 that will do the same, but in order to do so, you need to behold a Nightfall card. So it is limited in regards to what deck builds you can run this card in. Ultimately, it's not exactly a free play because you will not be able to play. You will be losing 2 unit mana, and you will only get spell mana in return. So, like I said, it seems like a very solid card, but it will fit very specific type of decks, which I like. I like the Sky Shadows. The Fangs, 4 mana 3/2 with lifesteal, so basically 1 mana more expensive Deadbloom Wonder that allows you to invoke a Celestial card that costs 3 or less. So the same effect as the Spacey Sketcher or the super cool Star Chart, I believe is the name of the card. Very, very dope, very solid unit, honestly. The fact that it has lifesteal is going to really help target Allegiance decks, and I definitely have a hard time not seeing this in most target Allegiance decks. I honestly think you replace the. I don't know. I would honestly. I would definitely, especially if I'm running like an Allegiance target, I would replace the Solari Sunforger with the Fangs. A lot of epics though. Riot's liking them epics. The Cloven Way, 5 mana overwhelm, 5/4. You stun an enemy. If it's a follower, you stun it again at the next round starts. So it is kind of like a 5 mana thicker Arachnoid Sentry that could potentially speed up Yasuo's level up consistently as well if you target a follower. So I like it. You know, anything that promotes Yasuo outside of Nexus and, you know, more flexibility for Yasuo deck building is something that I'm very excited for. Ultimately, though, like a lot of the valuable aspects of cards like Arachnoid Sentry or even Concussive Palm is, while the body that they come with is generally weak, it's good enough to always have a relevant presence in the board because it has the ability to block into Fearsomes, and it has a lot of really good trades and quite a bit of solid damage output as well. So it's a good stat line, and you're paying 3 mana for it, so it's very reliable, right? This being 5 mana does not make it as reliable as Arachnoid Sentry, at the expense of having a more menacing body, right? So ultimately, I do think Arachnoid Sentry will generally be better, but it is nice to have other options as well. And this is a cool effect. Like if you have Yasuo on the board, you can legitimately take something down, or at least, you know, promote his level up. The Veil Tempo is really interesting because this is a card that seems pretty bad initially, because you are paying 4 mana to do nothing. Like the turn you play this, you played 4 mana, and you got nothing done, no tempo whatsoever. And that's a big deal because if it was 3 mana, you know, there's a lot of things that can be done for 3 mana in that turn. There's a lot less pressure than at 4. You need to start really developing a board, right? Having a little bit of defense. So this is a big sacrifice, a momentum sacrifice. But in exchange, more so than the +1/+1 boost, is the ability to refill 2 mana. In a way, what this landmark is doing is it's ramping you, right? If you, in the right deck, if you have a deck that combines a bunch of spells, you know, which is very easy for a deck like Tarkin, you have 2 extra mana every turn from that point onwards. Also means that when you're at full mana, you have access to potentially 15 in total. That's really big. This can go a long way. If you have a deck that has some really strong snowball potential by chaining a bunch of spells together, this kind of card can be really scary. And it's hard to evaluate in a vacuum, but ultimately I do think this card can have a lot of very menacing potential in those sort of builds, and I'm very excited to mess around with it. This is a landmark that I'm very excited for. Could be a little bit toxic potentially. I could see that happening. Hopefully not. It's going to be a blast to play with nonetheless. Unless it's terrible. I don't know. It could be terrible. I don't think it will be, though. Starbone. If you behold the messenger, grant celestial allies everywhere +1/+1. Like, that's just... There's so many ways to, like, invoke 3 mana or less units now that getting the messenger is going to be very easy, I think. And honestly, I would run this in a Target Allegiance deck. Like, all my Celestial allies got +1/+1. That's just nutty. Your Golden Sisters are 5/4s and just everything. Messengers are 2 mana 3/3 that draws you a card. Like, that's just... The value output is just absolutely insane. I think this is a good card. I think this is a pretty good card. Could be wrong, but I think meeting this requirement is much easier than some people will think it is. Whew. 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 Stress testing is honestly it feels broken. It fundamentally feels broken. It's gonna give any sort of discard. Like, Draven is even better now. Draven Axis can actually cycle through your deck now, like, super easily, right? People talk about the ability to use this to take away fleeting. I don't think that's... It's nice to have that option with this card, especially in Twisted Fate decks with bigger card, but it's not even like a good combo in that sense. It's the fact that it's a 1 mana cheap burst speed spell, and the fact that, like I said, if you have enough discard mechanics, you can just use it as a free way to just cycle through your deck, man. A free axe goes a long way, dude, and it's just... It is balanced a little bit by having you draw a fleeting card, right? So you can't just use this whenever. But ultimately, stress testing feels like it's just going to be an auto-include in any sort of deck with discard capacity, really. And considering Piltover has a lot of that, definitely expect stress testing to have a big impact on this metagame. I have very little doubt of that. Very good card. Speaking of good cards, this card seems very, very, very good as well. Grant an ally regeneration. If they already have it, grant them +2/+2 instead. So if they already have regeneration, oh, no worries. Just 2 mana, grant +2/+2. So Sharp Sight, get wrecked, right? And then, honestly, like, granting an ally regeneration, there's so many... I don't even know off the top of my head, but there have to be, like, really, really crazy combos, especially when you apply it onto challengers, you know? Everybody's a Braum now, apparently. And I just feel like Troll Gifts has so much potential, and it really does give me this stress testing vibe, you know? Like, really, really good meta-defining, cheap burst speed spell. And yes, expect big things. Oh, I love this one as well. Gluttony. Oh my god, I love the art. I love everything about this card. Kill an ally with Last Breath to summon a follower from your deck that costs 1 more. The first thing that comes to mind immediately is Anivia. You apply this onto Anivia and you spawn a Rekindler from your deck. Just how dope is that, right? But there's a lot of combinations with this. There's a lot of Last Breath effects. You can design your deck in a way, you know. It's like it's the Neomorph of Legends of Runeterra from Magic the Gathering. Like, this is one of my favorite effects ever. So this is definitely one of the cards that I'm going to be messing around with first. And I'm going to try all sorts of combos, you know, like looking for a specific 4-drop or 5-drop with Last Breath in order to tutor out a specific card. I can use this 3-mana spell to get it out and also gain a lot of momentum from the Last Breath effect as well. There's a lot of synergistic value here to be discovered, and super, super excited for Gluttony. And then Flurry of Fist. Oh my god, this card is terrifying! Terrifying. Granted ally +1 power and quick attack. If it already has it, granted double attack as well. At burst speed, after the blockers have been declared, if one of my quick attackers, who my opponent does not want to block anyways, is out in the open, I can give it +1 power and double attack. Like that, this card can so easily enable crazy lethals, man. It's really exciting, and it's gonna make it so that, you know, you really have to think when you block into Ionia, right? I just fucking love it. It can be used as removal. It can really, like, this card alone really enhances the value of quick attack units, man. And I was waiting for some more quick attack support of some shape or form. I just wasn't sure what I wanted. And this is a great example. We need more double attack enablers in the game. I'm not saying, you know, print Emperor Cleave, but yeah, there is some middle ground, and I would like for them to explore that. So really, really dope card here. And then Powder. I love this music, by the way. We got Powder Pandemonium. I love the name. Summon a powder monkey and give a random enemy vulnerable this round for each time you've activated plunder in this game. If you manage to activate plunder in the first 5 turns, like 3 turns, for example, you're going to be able to summon a powder monkey and give 3 units vulnerable. Is this worth 4 mana? With cards like Shakedown, I don't think so. But I could be wrong. Especially, I mean, I feel like even in the... Wait. Oh my god, I read this wrong. Summon a powder monkey and give a random enemy vulnerable this round for each time. Miguel, English, Miguel. Oh my god, English. I almost misinterpreted this. So you get a powder monkey for every... Wow. Oh, I probably should have read this properly before recording this video. Shit. Okay, that's really cool, because this could be like a mini monkey harrowing, right? And every monkey that you spawn translates into 1 damage. So any sort of like aggressive deck could even like always justify this at least as a one-off, right? Like this is actually like, is this a finisher? This could very easily be a really solid finisher, or like a board wipe as well. I love this card. I don't know why I thought it was just 1 powder monkey and then a bunch of vulnerables, right? Oh man, I fucking love this. I love this. That's all I have to say. I love it. Wild Claws. So basically, Noxus's own atrocity, or potentially that. An ally strikes an enemy. If it has Overwhelm, deal excessive damage to the enemy Nexus. It's like a slow speed Concerted Strike. Very big deal, because Concerted Strike being slow speed is a significant nerf to the card. But once you get past that, you keep in mind this is Noxus, which should have a bit more of a difficult time, engaging in combat like Demacia does, due to this design of the regions. This card allows you to play it on something like a Darius and just threaten your opponent with a bazillion damage, right? It is very disruptible as well, which is important to know because it is slow speed. This card can be very easily countered. So I don't think this card will be super like top tier all the time, but I do think maybe one very strong deck can run this kind of card. And all I know is that Rico Rex is crying of happiness with this card. And that alone is a good story. And then we got Molten Breath. An ally with Fury strikes the 2 weakest enemies. So a very, very potent, like a lot of potential for this card, but at the same time, incredibly disruptible. Like if you're facing Shadow Owls, for example, Vile Feast can be a bitch to this. And also just like directly countering this with something like a Vengeance, right? You just lose a lot of momentum. The fact that it's slow speed, I mean, this at fast speed would be too much, especially in a region where you already have Concerted Strike. I don't think you play this card in Demacia when you have single combat, Concerted Strike, and the 3-mana, I forgot the name, but the bad single combat, the dragon single combat, basically. I don't think you play that there. Let's just play out the music a little bit. I really like that song. Even though I didn't get to play it properly here. Before we get to 40 minutes, I think this is where we're gonna end the video at. Had a lot to talk about. Amazing patch, amazing balance changes, really cool cosmetics as well. Super excited for Aphelios. Gonna be messing around with him first, but I have a bunch of other ideas that I will be exploring immediately as well. And those include the likes of Riven. I definitely am super excited to get back with Riven and see if we can make her a little bit better. And also Green Glade Elder, man. A lot of good shit. It's been such a long time coming, man. Like I said, over 50 days. And I'm happy we finally got it, man. It's finally here. And that's where I'll end it at. What do you guys think about the patch? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree with me? You think I'm an idiot? You think I'm a genius? Just leave a comment, especially if I'm a genius. I love that. It's fantastic for my ego. So don't be shy. What the fuck am I even saying? Love ya. Thank you for watching the video. Let me know what you think about this patch and what's to come. If there's anything that you would like me to explore deck building wise, also you can let me know. And expect a big surge and increase in the amount of videos you'll be getting from today onwards as we finally got that patch. So let's get on with it. Love ya. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for regular Legends of Runeterra content. I'll see you guys around.